fans, Brian Aho here, and the one and only Bert Lehman. Bert, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Supposed to get up to 47 tomorrow, so I'm hoping.
There we go. It's springtime, right? Spring is in the air. It's about time for that nasty white stuff to just melt and get away from here. Frost come out of the ground. We can get to racing. I saw a little bit on Facebook. Looks like you were maybe kind of having a little audition for Dancing with the Stars. Is that that going on?
Yep, I'll be on Dancing with the Stars next year. Yeah, it was in the town that I live in. It was there's a group that to raise money for a charity. They do a father-daughter dance, and it can be father-papa dance also. So I went with my granddaughter and her dad. So it's a good time. She's 5 and she learned the YMCA. So she was doing it the next day.
I tell you, that's one that one's been around for a day or two right there, right? That's one we knew as a little kid. So it's pretty cool. Glad you had a good time there. I actually got to spend some time with my daughter as well. We went to the Wild game. They lost. It's still fun. Saw some racers there. Saw some Kelly Lakers from up north. I saw Tim Borgeson and his wife. So it was a good time. But episode 169, man, time flies when you're having fun. Of course, brought to you by Dirt Track Supply. I mean, spring is here. Racing season is literally right around the corner. Lots of Wissota guys are heading down to Humboldt this weekend. So that means get on the horn with these guys. Wissota tires are going to be available after April 1st, okay? So get on the list if you're their customer. If you need parts, if you need safety equipment, if you need anything still to get your season rolling here in 2023 for all things racing, get a hold of Ron and Trevor over at Dirt Track Supply in Watertown, South Dakota, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to take care of you any way they can. So with that said, let's get rolling here in the show.
Yeah. So this last weekend, you're supposed to sit down with Rick Eggersdorf. How did that go?
I did. It was incredible. I'm excited. Hopefully the fans like it. It's going to be out in a couple weeks here. We got Mason from Mason Aaron's Videos doing the editing. You can't do much with this, right? Trying to make me look prettier. I still got a face for radio. But I tell you what, it was absolutely awesome sitting down with Rick. And, of course, his better half there, Bridget. Great hospitality, be able to sit down for several hours. Lots of content. Brought back a lot of great memories. Dino Don Swearingen was there. The D1 Dustin Dowdy was there for a while. So I'm telling you, Bert, it was fun. It was super fun. I learned a lot about the living legend himself. But stay tuned, fans. That's coming out. We're gonna have a pretty cool documentary there on the Hall of Famer.
Did you ask him about the World of Outlaw Shawano Speedway victory?
It came up. Came up.
Okay.
Yeah, it came up. Absolutely. So, and a whole lot more. There's some pretty cool stuff. You're gonna want to all stay tuned for that one coming out. But on this week's show, we got some race fan feedback. We had a fan send in a couple questions here in regards to dirt late models. Bert, is cancel culture ruining our sport? Is it killing our sport? We'll get into that. World of Outlaws versus the Posse, by far the biggest rivalry in all of dirt racing. Who won? And our picks, some bold, maybe not so bold predictions. I got to catch up. I need to maybe grab some low-lying fruit here. But first, Bert, how about a blast to the past? Episode 169. So we got 169, we got 69. But of course, before we get into that, a little shout out to Impact Health Sharing. So if you're self-employed, if you're an employee, you got to pay for your own health care. If you're a trucker, a farmer, it doesn't matter what it is. If you have to pay for your own health insurance and you feel like you might be paying too much, you're not happy with what you have, shoot me a message on Facebook, shoot me a text, a call, 218-969-1380. Be glad to see if maybe I can help you out, help you get a better deal, have some money left in your pocket so you can spend that on racing or something fun like that. So get a hold of me, see if we can help you out with your healthcare costs. But Bert, number 69, do you have any 169s?
I do not have a 169.
I do not. How about 69?
I had one, and one just popped into my mind, so I have two now.
All right, all right. What? I tell you what. I'll let you have the floor.
Well, the first one you wouldn't know. He raced at Channel Speedway in the maybe the 60s, 70s for sure. But he may be better well known for being the race director at Channel Speedway in the late 1980s and into the 1990s. And that would be Corny Schmidt,
Okay.
who is actually, I believe they're brothers, to Bob Schmidt, who raced sportsman and fast track late models at Channel Speedway. Both of them are in the Channel Speedway Hall of Fame. Corny was the most recent one, inducted probably 3 or 4 years ago. He was inducted.
Awesome. And who else do you got?
Well, I just thought of it. This driver you should know. I'll give you some hints. See if you can guess.
Give it away. The color blue. The color blue.
No.
Oh, we might have a different one. All right. Give me
Well,
some hints. What do you got?
At least blue. Well, yeah, I guess maybe blue. Cartoon.
Yes.
Oh,
Papa Smurf, right?
Yeah.
Papa Smurf, John Olson. I'm not sure where he's from. He's from Wisconsin, I believe. But he ran late models for quite a while.
He's from northern Wisconsin somewhere, I believe.
I remember racing against him he came up to Superior. I saw him at Cedar Menominee, stuff like that. And it's been a day or two since he's been around the track. I haven't heard much about him, but the red and white car, I threw you off with the blue. I was talking about the Smurf.
Yeah, I was thinking of the color of his cars. There's no blue on his car, and the Smurf is blue on his car. Yes.
I don't know much about him. Do you remember much about him other than he's a late model guy?
I don't know much about him other than he had a white beard. He kind of looked like Papa Smurf in that regard. But he was a tough competitor when he did race. He only raced a short period of time, at least around Shawano. But one night at Shawano, he just absolutely put a whooping on the late model field. If you're not familiar with Shawano Speedway, when the race is over, you pull into the pits just before turn 3, and then you follow the pit lane to the scale. And he just absolutely put a whooping. He was pulling off the track just before turn 3 after he took the checkered flag, and the second place car was just crossing the finish line when he was pulling off the track.
That's a big racetrack. So fans, in case you don't know, Shawano's a half mile. So to be that far ahead on a half mile, that's a whooping. That's a whooping right there. So I never really got to know him very well. I was pretty still wet behind the ears. I ran against him in the late models, but kind of a cool story. Thanks for sharing that. So I have a few 69s here, and a lot of them from the Twin Ports, northern Minnesota. The first one I'm going to start with is, I call him the mad scientist, Paul Rizzillo. So Paul Rizzillo, I think he won a championship in the 69 in the streets, but he's ran everything: super stocks, modifieds, late model, street stocks. This guy here, he built a go-kart track on the south side of Superior and kind of started a go-kart track down there that was very popular for a number of years. I remember the first memory I have of him, he wasn't 69, his number was Racer X, right? And that just tells you the mindset of this guy, that he's always, the wheels are turning, he's always trying to do something different, but somehow tied in through marriage, I think, with the Nelson family. His daughter, Nitro Nikki Rizzillo, she raced for a while in a modified. So Paul Rizzillo, the first one that comes to mind. You talked about John Olson. Here's another one from Cedar Lake. I don't know if you remember this guy or not. He ran modified super stocks, my favorite class, the winged outlaw modifieds down there at Cedar Lake. Do you remember Bobby Houston?
Yes.
Yep. So Bobby Houston was a legend. And speaking of Rick Eggersdorf, he ran the Olsen Brothers Liquor 21. They call them hobby stocks, but it was really a super stock. And there was 3 of them at one time. It was Eggersdorf, Ron Jones, Bobby Houston had another one, but Bobby Houston in the 69, that guy won a lot of races. And, you know, I remember even being a little kid, he was that guy that was just easy to talk to, him and his wife up at Thunder Bay. We were up there for the Invitational. Then he ran a super one year, Bert. Feel like maybe it was a number 88 car, though. I'm not really positive. He's driving for somebody else, and I'm out there in hot laps, opening night at Cedar Lake, and all of a sudden I'm coming up on him, and he kind of darts down and comes up, and he just stuffs me in the fence. I'm like, what in the hell? What was that? Steering wheel fell off. I mean, it was instantaneous after that. He came down. He's like, man, I am so sorry. And I may have had that happen once too. I got into Joel Collins. So, but great memories of Bobby Houston, especially over at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Another one, Puka might remember this guy. So when he's watching the show here, Gene Brusacorn, a Chisholm guy. So he ran in the 6-cylinder division. I think he maybe ran in the super stocks for a little bit, but he had a black and gold number 69. And he actually purchased this car from a guy by the name of Gary Grierson, who was absolutely bolted, number 17. Very, very good racer. And then he completely changed it. I think it was a Nova body. Bert, that car sat behind my dad's shop for a ton of years. And then finally someone bought it. I think they built it into a vintage car. And I remember one night coming out of Hibbing, and there used to be a little bit of beer drank, like on rainouts, and the car fell right off the trailer. Like it fell off. And I have a picture of that at home somewhere. But great memories from back in the day. Another Chisholm guy. There ain't too many left racing. Another one, I'm going to remember the Red 7, Ron Jones. Legendary modified driver, right? Multi-time national champion. So I believe it was 1994, pretty positive. He drove for a guy by the name of Pete Caruzzi. So Pete Caruzzi ran a super stock number 69. He ran it mostly from down right around the Princeton area. But then he realized, I don't quite, maybe I should put Jones in this car. And he won a bunch of races that year, as he did in everything he sat in. But I was still really young. It was like my second or third year in the supers. And I remember he came up to Hibbing, and we had a pretty good race. He probably beat me, but I remember we were both up front kind of duking it out. But Ron Jones in the red 69. Another one here, I got this from my buddy Lauren Inman. He sent it over. Jim Slocum, guy that ran in the hobby stock division and in the supers in my early years. Don't remember much about him, but he did share a story, Bert. So there was a guy by the name of Gary Corneliuson, just an awesome guy. Help anybody, give you the shirt off his back. He raced, and he borrowed Jim Slocum his trailer, right? And evidently, I don't know a lot of details here, but evidently they were going just about to the bridge from Duluth to Superior over the high bridge, and the trailer came unhooked from the truck. And I guess it wreaked some havoc. I guess there was a big accident and all that. I think there might have been some injuries, not positive. It was a long time ago. I don't think there was any fatalities, but that was one of the memories that Lauren had of him. Another one I have here. Remember the name Rick Popovich? He's a former Wissota late model national champion. He bought a car from Larry Phillips, had a white 75 car. I remember him mostly for a 40. But I saw a picture kind of floating around on the internet that he actually sat in a modified number 69. I think that was just a short little stint, but the guy that actually drove that car, Rick Long. And Rick Long, I believe his kid, I could be wrong, but I believe his kid is actually on the board now at the Halberline Speedway. But Rick Long is a guy that he won a bunch of races between the mod. I think he had a little stint there in the late model. I know he ran super stocks for a while as well. He was in the Air Guard, and I remember a really cool picture, Bert, where I think it was his modified, and he had it next to a fighter jet out on the runway. Kind of a pretty cool picture back in the day. Another one from over in Cedar Lake here, Dave Madsen. And I looked at this car. I saw pictures of it. I always thought it was Bobby Houston's car, but I guess it used to be. So him and Bobby Houston kind of ran together. Dave Madsen, then of course his kid raced. I think his grandkids in the car as well, but a Cedar Lake guy there for a number of years. And the last one I have, this is for all you really old school guys up there in Superior. They call him the cowboy, Dick Van Ert. And he's from down in Pattison Park, lived kind of in the Dick Christman area. Bert, I look back, if you look at I think it's Tri-State Racing, something like that on Facebook. It's kind of a page that has to do with the Superior Speedway. This guy back in the 70s had like a hauler, that kind of a rollback hauler that was all decked out with Budweiser on it. I mean, back then there wasn't a lot of like professional looking operations, right? It just wasn't. This guy had an absolute professional looking operation. And I believe that maybe he had a little something to do with Dick Chrisman too in the early years. So kind of a fun deal. If you got any 69s, go ahead and post them in the comments. If you have any stories about some of the drivers we mentioned, we love to hear them, right? We got 70 coming up next, so go ahead and share. But that was a little blast to the past. And what do you say we move on to a little fan feedback and a couple of questions there from the fans, Bert? But first, a quick shout out to buyraceshirts.com. Racing season's here, right around the corner. Everybody needs their apparel, right? Whether it's hats, t-shirts, hoodies, you name it, whatever you need, jump online, go to buyraceshirts.com, and you can get all your apparel, right? And there's a lot of different, you can get small quantities, big quantities, you can get like custom made stuff, you can get simpler stuff, whatever you want. They can do it to fit your needs. If you're a track promoter, series promoter, Jordan Tollickson and his crew down in Montevideo, Minnesota, he's a racer, big racing group, and they'll take good care of you. But Brad had a couple questions for us here, but kind of one question wrapped into two, okay? He's a big late model guy, okay? Puka would love him, big late model guy. I like late models, but he likes late models a lot. So he had a question. He goes, in today's modern day drivers, right? The drivers we have today, not people that are retired. I'm talking about current drivers. If you had to put a team of drivers together that race super late models, and literally you looked at the schedule, right? And you got all these crown jewels, 50 grand to win, 100 grand to win, million to win, whatever it is, right? And if you said, if your goal at the beginning of the year, Bert, right, it was not points related, it was just literally, we're going to win every single big paying show, and somebody on our team is taking home that money, who would your three drivers be to actually go out and win on the highest level?
I think the first two drivers are fairly easy to pick, at least in my opinion. You got to go with Superman and Overton. And then the third one, I would go with Chris Madden, just because he's won lots of big events, so he knows what it takes to win big events.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some hate mail from the Overton lovers. I agree. I mean, them are good. Who's your third one?
Chris Madden.
Madden. Okay, so you went with Superman, Madden, and Overton. I went with Superman. I mean, the dude won $2 million. He won about everything last year. Take away that million to win, though, Chris Madden was not too far behind him. Okay, he won a lot of big races. But I went with a third one, right? Because in my mind, you got JD, you got Madden, and you even take Overton, and I would say their driving styles are all fairly similar, right? Their momentum, roll the middle. They're not really that. I mean, not that they can't do it, but they're not known for that just banging the boards. You get that aggressive type track. So I kind of looked at it and I'm thinking, if we get a track that it's just cowboy up, right? I mean, you better bring it, right? I need somebody, because you might get rain. You might get rain at one of these shows. I need somebody that can compete on that. So instead of Overton, I got the smooth operator, Bobby Pierce. And I'm not saying, now remember, Bobby Pierce, am I picking him to win all of them? No. I got Davenport and Madden, right, to do the other ones. But when it comes to that elbows up, cushion banging, ripping, that type of track, I'm going to go with Pierce on that one. But, I don't think many people would argue that Overton would be in the conversation for sure. Now, let's flip this. Okay, let's flip this. Let's say that World of Outlaws, and let's eliminate the chase format. We're not going to get into what our thoughts are on that, but let's get away from the chase format. Let's say it's a traditional, like 50 shows or 40, whatever, however many shows, and you're just going to race all of them shows and they're going to have a traditional championship battle. Okay. And let's say that they announced, hey, it's $1 million to win the championship this year. And you're like, come hell or high water, my team is winning that championship. Okay. Who would your 3 championship drivers be? Would they be the same drivers, or would they be somebody different?
They'd be different. I would still go with Superman because he's already won multiple championships, so he knows what it takes to do that. I would stay with Chris Madden also. He has won a World of Outlaw title, and so he knows what it's like to run a series. And then I would replace Overton with Tim McCready. McCready, we always talk about how he nickels and dimes his way to championships, but he can win races too. And the reason I'm taking him over Overton is just T-Mac has proven he can do it, where Overton has never really followed a touring schedule before. So I don't want to say it's easy but you can gear up for a big event and, just plan for that one event. But when you're on the road night after night, going to different tracks, racing for a series title, it takes a little bit of a different mindset to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to agree on JD. I'm going to agree on T-Mac. That would be my number one. If I had to pick one, it's Tim McCready for a championship. But my third one is kind of a little bit of a wild card here. Fans, go ahead and post in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who would your 3 be? But even though he's off to a little bit of a slow start, right? I'm telling you right now, when it comes to like putting your nose to the grindstone, going out winning a championship, I'm going to go with Brandon Sheppard, because I believe that he has the mindset to get it done. Now, you got to remember, he just had another kid. They're building a shop. They have all that transition. I don't know if his mind's quite there, but when his mind's on the game, he's one of the best championship racers there is. And I would take him as one of my 3. Now, did you get a chance to see that documentary they did on Flow Racing with Jonathan Davenport?
I watched the preview, but I haven't watched the actual documentary yet. That is one thing that is high on my to-do list, is to watch that.
They did a great job with it. It's fantastic. You'll definitely want to watch that for sure. So let's jump into the next topic. And this one's kind of a hot topic, right? This is something that's been eating at me for a while. You see things happen and I just shake my head, right? I'm not sure if you knew this, Bert, but I'm not the kind of guy that really just kind of holds back, right? Like you don't really have to wonder what I'm thinking, because right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm going to tell you. And you know what? You might not agree. And you know what? That's okay. Did you know, Bert, that if you and I have like 2 completely like different viewpoints on something, like I'll still like you. It's okay. Right. And in fact, I kind of like that once in a while. You got to have that, right? Our world has gone to shit. It's unbelievable. We are in a world that if somebody disagrees, they just get written off. You can't disagree with anybody. You can't challenge anybody. You can't, cancel culture on everything, right? So we're gonna talk about Brad's favorite racing. It's NASCAR here for just a minute. Okay. So did you see what happened in the Xfinity race this weekend?
Afterwards, I saw it. Yeah.
So thanks. Here's what happened. Because I saw the aftermath too. I did not watch the whole race. Nothing against it, but I just didn't. Right. So a driver by the name of Josh Williams. Up until this point, Bert, I had never heard of the guy ever. Nothing against him. Probably a good racer. Just never heard of him. So he got into an altercation early in the race and had to go in, and they took, I don't remember the name of it. Was it some kind of a bond deal where it's like a patch they put on the car, and it's supposed to adhere to it. It's like an adhesive, right? Well, during the race, it fell off. He said it was cold. It doesn't adhere very good in cold weather. It fell off. Well, NASCAR up and said over the radio, whatever number he was, Josh Williams, your race is done. Go to the garage area, park it. You're done. He's like, wait, what? Right? So he did park it, He literally drives to the front straightaway. He's during racing, right? Parks the car like right on like the start finish line, gets out of his car, and he just kind of like grabs his helmet, walks through the infield, gives them the deuces, like, peace out, right? I'm gonna walk back to the pits. I'll leave this shit box right here. And it's like, have you ever seen anything like that as far as on that level?
On that level, no, I never seen anything like that. And I don't know if you saw the interview with him afterwards.
I did, but touched on it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, basically, he said, we're a low dollar team. We're just trying to, get exposure for our sponsors, being out on the track, and, they're calling us in just because this bond stuff fell off the car. And so they said, park it. So I did.
And first of all, stupid rule, right? You should not have to be like eliminated from the race because a patch fell off the car. That is stupid. I can see going, hey, you got to go to the pits, right? You got to fix it and come back out. You might be a lap or two, couple of laps down, whatever. But like completely done when that happened, that dumb rule, right? So again, who won that race?
I have no idea.
No, neither do I. Nobody cares, right? But guess what? The whole freaking world of racing in the last few days has talked about the Xfinity race. Not because of the guy who won. They're talking about it because Josh Williams parked his car on the front straightaway. NASCAR today. Okay, first thing happened earlier today. Jeff sent me a picture from Bristol, right? At Bristol, somebody took a sign. It may have been a meme, I'm not sure, but I think it might have been real. There was a sign that said reserve parking, Josh Williams, and the sign was like sitting in the corner, right? Kind of like let's just kind of make a joke out of this because it bringing light to the sport. But NASCAR, because they're NASCAR and NASCAR's stupid, as we all know, one race suspension for this. They're going to suspend them. Yep. They levied a one race suspension today. Tuesday is when all the penalties come out. And it's like, you dumbasses should be like paying him to do this. That's more marketing than they've gotten in how long? Like, what are they thinking, right? Now, did you hear what happened with Denny Hamlin?
This last week or the week before?
Week before. I just learned about it this past week.
Yeah, the week before he basically in the last lap intentionally took somebody out. And well, the thing is, he admitted what he did on his podcast that he does. So the thing is, if he wouldn't have said that on his podcast, would anything have even happened? But yeah, I mean, he got penalized for that.
So here's what happened. You're exactly right. So during the race, he had an altercation with Ross Chastain, which those two have had plenty of them in the last couple of years. And at the end of the race, yeah, he fenced him. I mean, didn't like destroy him, whatever, but it was enough to wreck Chastain's day, right? Stevie Wonder texted me and said, yeah, that was on purpose, right? I mean, he even saw it. I mean, everybody knew it was on purpose. But yeah, then he gets on the podcast and Denny Hamlin's a guy, like him or hate him. He don't hold back. He's like, yeah, I would have won. I don't exactly remember the words, but in layman's term, I paid the piper, right? He got it back. He gave me one earlier. Ross Chastain even said, I probably deserved it, right? Chastain even said that. So he has a podcast and he mentioned it, owns up to it on the podcast. And NASCAR even said that because he said on the podcast that he did it on purpose, they gave him a $50,000 fine. $50,000. Okay, everybody already knew that he did it on purpose. All you had to do was watch the race. I mean, it wasn't, but the fact that he said, what do they want to do? Shut him up? Like, what do they want? Oh, you can't say that. That's like, you can't send mean tweets. You can't be mean. You can hurt somebody's feelings. NASCAR, wake up, right? So, well, that's the world we live in. It's just ridiculous.
Well, the thing is, when that penalty was announced too, I can't remember the exact wording from NASCAR, but it was something to the effect of, he's being penalized because he intentionally hit a car or something like that. And I'm thinking, well, on the last lap, how many drivers intentionally hit the leader to move him out of the way? So, I mean, when it's for the lead, it's okay. But when it's a payback thing, then it's not okay.
100% correct. And really what it come down to, and there's been a lot of discussion over this, is the fact that he verbalized and I don't want to say bragged about it, but he just pointed it out. Like, yeah, I did it and I'd do it again. Right. I mean, that's just the way it is. So,
well, I mean, back in the, good old days, that's how drivers took care of things. And granted, there wasn't the social media and all of that where they could come out and say, yeah, I did it. But, I'm sure they said, yeah, I did it on purpose. It's just, it wasn't exposed on social media and other media forms back in the day.
Well, you're exactly right. Well, let me ask you this. So remember that deal with Winger and G.R. Smith here a couple weeks ago at Southern Raceway? Who won that race? Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't remember either. Okay. How about Martinsville, right? Last year at Martinsville. What happened at Martinsville at the end of the year last year?
Well, that was a Ross Chastain deal. And yes, I don't know who won that race.
You don't know who won? How about when Turbo and Pierce got together, had their incident at the USA Nationals? Remember who won that?
Did Superman win that?
I think it was Overton, wasn't it?
Could have been.
That's my point, right? So it might have been Overton. It was one of them two, either Overton or Superman. But the fact is, them are moments in racing, right? We need those moments. Now, before we go on, I want to give a shout out here to Brad Parson, right? Ag Solutions from Brad Parson. Planting season, the snow is going to melt, right? If you're in North Dakota, South Dakota, Western Minnesota, the snow is going to melt. You are going to be able to plant this year. Okay, that is going to happen. But get prepared. If you're going to be able to plant this year, you might as well have the right chemicals. Get a hold of Brad. He's got a lot of different stuff that you can put in your current spray packages. And if you get a hold of him, he's got the results. He's got the documentation. He's got the data. And it's yielded really, really high yields, increased profitability. That's what you're looking for. Absolutely incredible numbers. So if you're looking for a great planting season, Brad Parson is your guy. So racing, in my opinion, Bert, needs storylines, right? So I'm going to ask you just a quick question. So do you personally prefer like colorful personalities that are volatile, that type of person? Or do you prefer the cut and dried, professional, even keeled, your Kirk Cousins type of race car driver that they don't get too high or low? They just kind of stay out of trouble and kind of keep their mouth shut. What do you prefer?
Well, I'm not necessarily going to answer this the way you want me to answer this.
I just want how you want to. Yeah, you answer it how you want to answer it.
I think you need both to create excitement and drama. I mean, people say, well, we don't want drama. Well, you don't want over the top drama, but you want drama to.
Well, we don't want people to get hurt, right? We
don't
want injury,
Right. I mean, if you have a sport that doesn't have any over the top people or colorful people, colorful personalities is what I mean. It's going to be a boring sport and nobody wants to go watch a boring sport.
Exactly.
And everybody kind of says, the squeaky clean driver kind of started when Jeff Gordon came into NASCAR. That was Earnhardt versus Gordon. You know, Earnhardt was the over the top driver, not afraid to say what's on his mind, and not afraid to put somebody in the wall, or, you know, bump somebody out of the way. Just ask Terry Labonte at Bristol.
He's trying to rattle your cage, trying to rattle his cage a little bit there.
Yeah,
you know,
so,
and that's the thing. Did you ever watch WWE wrestling ever?
Oh yeah.
Up?
Oh yeah.
Now,
back in the late 80s and 90s and early 2000s, I loved watching it. I don't watch it anymore, but
yeah,
back then,
same
I
with
loved
me.
it.
And I probably will watch WrestleMania. I don't know, for whatever reason, I still like it's entertaining to me. But the fact of the matter is this. Did you watch wrestling because you're like, oh man, The Rock is such an amazing technical wrestler. Like, his skill set is incredible. Or did you watch and you're like, I wonder what like Rock and Stone Cold are gonna do, what they're gonna say.
Oh, right.
Like, it was all drama, right? And I get it. Wrestling is fake. They're athletes, but it's fake. It's got a storyline. But for me personally, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think wrestling was at its best when WWE and WCW were competing against each other,
Right.
and it was to see who could have the best show. And by having the best show meant that there was a lot of over the top stuff going on.
For sure. And we don't need to fabricate that in racing. Just let people be people. Racing is an emotional sport, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there that literally are racing at a high level that cannot afford to be racing at a high level. So that alone makes people's blood pressure rise, just the finances of it. And it's gotten worse. Nobody can afford it. Now it's ridiculous how much it costs. But people, it's a high highs, it's a low lows, right? People are passionate. You know, I heard somebody say this one time, Bert, that when the most passionate people about anything, right, are quiet, you better look there. You got problems coming. And now, not only are the passionate people quiet, they're like trying to keep them quiet, which is an issue all by itself. See, for me, racing needs that drama, and you got to have that. You got to have rivalries. A dominant race car driver sometimes creates a little bit of a buzz all by that, you know, all by himself, because some of the fan base wants to see him keep winning, and some of the fan base is flat out sick of that person winning, right? When somebody wrinkles your quarter panel, and all of a sudden you're like, that dude's gonna get it back. like he's got one coming. You know, we all love soundbites. People talk about it all the time. You're exactly right. Oh, I don't know the drama and all that. But literally, they're looking for a soundbite, and it's shared all over the internet every time there was a soundbite, like Jack Stewart back in the day, right? That soundbite went absolutely, it went all over the place. That stuff matters, right? You have NASCAR, and I'll just say it, WISSOTA is another one, right? They are scared to death that anybody calls them out or says anything against them or about them or challenges them or tries to make them better by calling out their shortcomings. It's like, oh no, we need to shut them up. We need to they can't say nothing. They're hurting our feelings, right? Well, the best way to shut someone up is to perform at a high level, right? So that way we don't have to talk about the stupid stuff. We can talk about the good stuff, right? So you think about that, and let's talk about this, right? So colorful personalities from back in the day. I'm not even talking the last 5 years or so. I'm talking like as you were growing into a race fan, years past, who are some of the most colorful personalities that you can remember, you know, on a national scene, on a local scene? Who are some of the people that come to mind for Bert Lehman?
Well, on the national scene, obviously Dale Earnhardt Sr. He's the first one who comes to mind. And more recently, he's probably the most recent one is Tony Stewart. You know, he wasn't afraid to say what was on his mind, and it got him in trouble a lot of times. I mean, you know, there were times when, you know, there were stories that he was going to lose his ride at Joe Gibbs Racing because of some of the stuff that he said and did. So those two are the big two that I think of in the NASCAR ranks.
How about in the local though? Did you have anybody in Eastern Wisconsin or from the races that you went to that you're like, and here's a couple of, and it could be on the positive side or the bad side, right? It could be, and I'm talking like personalities, like just they stand out. And it could be on the good side, it could be somebody with just massive charisma, right? They're fun to watch on the racetrack, but they're always fun, they're exciting, they're always in a good mood, they're like over the top, they just got that it factor to them. Or like when something happened, if you were a film crew back in the day, you would have been busting ass to get down to their car because you knew that either there was going to be a brawl, an official was going to get beat up, there was going to be sound bites, there was going to be something going on. Any of the above. Who sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, in in Eastern Wisconsin, I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier, that when a driver wins a lot, the grandstand tends to turn on them a little bit because they want to see somebody else win, and that's kind of what happened with MJ McBride and Shano. I mean, I remember going to a fair race and it was like 1980, and he won this was before he won any championships. Well, that might have been the first year that he did win a championship. And he won the feature. I mean, the crowd just went wild, hometown boy wins feature on fair night, blah, blah, blah. But then he won like, 7 championships in 9 years. And, by the end of the 90s, whenever they'd introduce them, it's just a chorus of boos and, that's just and then later in his career as he won less and less, then the boos weren't there like they were before. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. But so, and then Pete Parker was probably in Eastern Wisconsin the driver that not afraid to say what's on his mind. I mean, if he wasn't happy with something, he would let you know that. And so the battles between MJ and Pete Parker were just legendary. I mean, you'd have half the grandstand cheering, half the grandstand booing, and that's kind of what made Shano so great. That was and then you throw in Terry Aveling too in that mix. So between those three, the grandstands were just a buzz. But like in the 70s too, a driver by the name of John Schultz won a lot there. And, it was, I mean, there's newspaper articles where the headline is yay Schultz, boo Schultz. It was, it just divided up the grandstand. Half of the grandstand loved them, half of the grandstand didn't like them. And, but you need that to get the crowd interaction. That means that they care, they want to be there, they want to see what's going to happen next. Joe Vertigan always said that you need somebody to wear the black cowboy hat because if everybody's a good guy, there's no excitement.
And hold that thought because we're going to bring that around to modern day, because you're exactly right. If you have a very quiet, if you're a promoter, right, I want you to write this down. If you're a promoter, pause it, write this shit down, okay? If your fan base is quiet, like it's a freaking library every night in the grandstands, you have a problem that you need to fix, okay? That is a huge deal. I've seen some tracks, I've been to some tracks where nobody's cheering, booing, nothing. They're just like sitting there like watching. I'm like, this ain't good. That is not good for the future of racing in your area if that is what your racetrack looks like. Here's something that came to mind for me. Of course, you talked about Earnhardt. So you mentioned MJ. He went on that long winning streak, right? And from what I know, I don't know much of MJ, but he wasn't like the troublemaker, like loudmouth. He was
no,
that guy.
Not at all.
They just booed him because he was winning. Well, that's Scott Dan Zeeson. Scott Dan Zeeson at the Viking Speedway, his brother was a little boisterous, right? But Scott was kind of a mute. He was quiet. He didn't say much, but he was dominant. And that crowd hated him. I'm telling you, the loudest boos ever were for Scott Dan Zeeson down at the Viking Speedway. And it wasn't because any other reason other than he was dominant, right? That's why. So that's important because it's just as important to have a fan base that hates somebody as a driver. Typically, they don't even know the driver, but they just hate watching that guy win, and having people that love seeing the person. That's you got to have that. Scott Bloomquist. I mean, is there a more polarizing person in dirt late model racing history than Scott Bloomquist? I mean, he's done some insane things, and he's kind of built that bad boy persona. They either love him. Oh, bless you. They either love him or hate him, right? Because of the way he is. In our area, the Tomcat, right? Mr. Thunder, Tom Nesbitt. Man, there's stories that go back for ages. One of the best ever to strap into a race car in our region, probably throughout the whole country. The guy's got hundreds and hundreds of wins, but he's got hundreds and hundreds of stories about. You want to talk about somebody that if he had an opinion, it got shared. Pit meetings were interesting with Tom Nesbitt, right? He had some moments. Bert, one time in Hibbing, he got spun out, and he literally, they left him sit there, and he was pissed off. I mean, he clearly got spun out by Tom Wasilewski. He gets on the gas during the heat race, drives around the infield, and he created such a dust bowl that they had to stop the race. Well, they'd kick him out of WISSOTA now. He'd be suspended for a month.
Well, I remember I was at a WISSOTA late model challenge series race at in Menominee, Red Cedar Speedway one year, and a call went against Nesbitt, and so he was way behind because I don't know exactly what happened. I don't remember exactly what happened, but so he was kind of by himself on the track, as you know, he was still green, and every time he got to the flag stand, he'd flip off the flag man. Every single time the middle finger would come out.
And I'm here to tell you, right? He was a hell of a race car driver.
Oh yeah.
But there was people that went to the racetrack because Tom Nesbitt's going to be here. I want to see what kind of shit goes down tonight, right? That dude sold tickets, period. Sold tickets. Ed Wakefield. They called him Rambo. Nice guy. Like, if you literally knew Ed, I mean, he was he was actually a pretty down to earth guy, but he was like a firecracker, man. He was volatile. He went, folklore says, and somebody can share if I'm wrong, but he got a call in Ashland that he did not agree with, and he proceeded to crawl right up they had the judges stands in the infield. He crawled right up the deal and punched the guy, right? And I remember him multiple times flipping people off, and literally extremely volatile. Hell of a racer, volatile. He kind of had the whole mix, but interesting. The word is interesting, right? You didn't know what was going to happen. Jeff Provenzino, right? The Italian stallion, Hibbing, Minnesota's finest. This guy here won a lot of races, big specials, multi-time Silver 1000 winner. He's won a lot of stuff, right? He might have been he competed with me in the steering wheel toss, right? If he was pissed off, everybody in the whole pit area in probably a half-mile radius of the racetrack, they knew he was pissed off because he was loud, boisterous. I mean, he was absolutely going to go completely off on somebody. But at the same time, you could flip a switch with Provo, and he'd be like, you want to talk about a good time, Bert? You go hang out at Provenzino's shop and bullshit old stories and racing. He'll have you bent right over laughing. Like, but he's a personality. He's interesting. People wanted to see what he was going to do. You know, Scott Ward is that guy, the wild child. I heard stories out there in South Dakota. I mean, the fan base between him and the Tesh clan. I mean, you either love Tesh or you love Scott Ward, and there was no happy medium. The fan bases were ready to kill each other, let alone anything. And Ward was volatile. Jack Hewitt, right? How about that soundboy Jack Hewitt had? You know, we've all seen it on the internet. And then on the flip side of that, Steve Arpin, right? Owns Longhorn Chassis. He wasn't the volatile going to get in your face, and like he wasn't that guy. Charisma stood apart. Kenny Wallace said, you got to have them personalities that stand apart. That got him a ride in NASCAR, right? That got him a ride in, I guess it'd be the Xfinity Series now, you know, and moved on and kind of went up the ranks and created himself a great career in motorsports. Those personalities, do they even exist now, right? Well, so you look at it now.
And we forgot one. I mean, whether you love him or hate him, I mean, Terry Casey brought excitement to the races.
That's your neck of the woods, Eastern Wisconsin. Yeah. And he raced over
he
Western
went to
Wisconsin.
Cedar Lake and raced for several years, or at least 1 year. He'd drive to Cedar Lake every week and race. But yeah, I mean, you know, whether you liked him or disliked him, you went to the track to watch him race.
100%. Absolutely. Now, I want you to look at, just take a snippet of today's modern racer, right? And I got a couple here that maybe stand out, but it's few and far between. In your mind, give me just a couple people in your mind today that literally are personalities in our sport of racing.
Well, you'd probably at the top would be Kyle Busch.
Yeah. And he's even simmered down a little bit in his old age.
Yeah. I mean, Denny Hamlin, I guess you could say. Yeah, I mean, that's how tough it is. I mean,
now let's bring it to dirt though. Okay, so we got NASCAR, we got asphalt. I agree on both of those. Not maybe quite as much as like, you know, Yarbrough's and Dale Earnhardt. I mean, it's a different deal. But how about in dirt racing? National scene first in dirt racing, right?
Well, Turbo.
I'd go with Turbo. And I'd even go as much as Bobby Pierce because he's always going to give you a sound bite. Those two are exciting. They're not afraid to rip the side off your car, whatever they got to do.
Bobby Pierce he's kind of the quiet one, but on the track, he's not necessarily quiet. And then if something happens on the track, yes, he'll give you a sound bite.
He absolutely will. And so I went to the Mississippi Thunder Speedway for the Dairyland Showdown last year, right? They had, you know, and that's coming up. Put that on your calendar. Great event down there at Mississippi Thunder. Jonathan Davenport wins the feature. Bert, I'm not shitting you. There couldn't have been 4 people at his trailer after there was nobody there. This dude just won 50 grand. There is nobody by the 49. Nobody, right? Turbo was battling up front, got a flat tire, and there had to have been a line of 50 people, okay? Minimum, waiting to get T-shirts. I don't think it's even debatable on who the better driver is, right? I mean, in my opinion, it's Jonathan Davenport, and it ain't close, okay? Nothing against Turbo, but he ain't Superman. He just ain't. But as far as personalities go and selling T-shirts, people were more interested in Turbo. The personality was more popular, right, than the talent of Jonathan Davenport. So you look at a couple of things. You know, got Brad's favorite driver here. Okay, Brad, big Tyler Carpenter guy. You know, we don't see him. Just kidding, Brad. Relax. Woosah. Okay, he hates Tyler Carpenter. Does not like him. But Tyler Carpenter, you know, a little extreme, maybe a little bit, you know, but I don't know about extreme, but the personality came out at Gateway, and the crowd went bonkers.
You mean Tyler Carpenter, the New Deal?
The New Deal, yeah. And, you know, the thing is, you want to talk about a polarizing guy at Gateway, half the crowd is cheering, like they want him to win. Half the crowd is like, that guy's a dirtball and whatever. Like, but that's good for the sport. It creates interest. Young Charlie Medford, right? And he's still young. He's 15, 16 or whatever, but he rolled over. You can't park there, right? People remembered that moment more than they remember the cars going around the track in a circle. On a local level, I would say I really can only think of a couple, right? And they're a different type of personality. I'm going to put Buzzy. Even though he's simmering down in his, you know, racing, he's going to give you a soundbite, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's going to, and he's fun to watch. I'd kind of put him on the Bobby Pierce deal, right? Like, I don't give a shit if you like me. I'm here to win. Like, I don't know why you're all booing me, he said at Menominee. I don't know why you're all booing me. Half the people here came to watch me. I'm like, bold, true. It was true, but wow, that was kind of bold. Or last year at Menominee, well, I'm still the best modified driver around.
Well,
again.
One year, didn't he say, I don't know why everybody's so scared of racing against Jimmy Mars or something like that? Didn't you say that one year?
Probably. So Buzzy, but he's one of my favorite people by far. Like, I am, it's really bothering me that he's about done racing, because that tells me I'm really old, because he's younger than me. Like, he's fun to watch. Rumor has it that his kid might be out in a B-mod this year, so keep an eye on that. Kind of excited about that next generation. And then the only other two I can really think of, you got the Cowboy Shane Hall, right? I mean, if he wins, you best watch Victory Lane, because something crazy is going to be said or happen or whatever. That charisma, that's good stuff. In the Wolverine, Justin Vogel, I mean, same thing. He's just got that charisma, help anybody, excited. Neither one of them have that kind of bad boy persona, so to speak. Buzzy maybe more than others, but other than that, Bert, I can't think of anybody other than that I would say is like a personality in our sport. That's a problem, right? It's got to be more than just driving around in a circle. I mean, there's no track championships. Track championships used to be a big deal. That was a huge deal. They're not, right? Because tracks, and I get it, tracks, but they don't go get the marketing partners that they need to have a point fund worth racing for. You know, maybe that's got to be on the sanctioning body, the track, a little bit of both. But you want to fix local racing, create that, because that creates rivalries. You're racing for championships on your home turf. That creates rivalries. But not only do we not have those, Bert, but when you see things like NASCAR, WISSOTA, these sanctioning bodies literally penalizing people, like way over the top penalties on people for bringing out their personalities, they just don't get it. They simply don't. I mean, it just, they should be promoting, again, not promoting like beat somebody in the face with a shovel, right? Not at Southern Raceway. That's over the top. We can't have that shit, right? But literally, I mean, if somebody's going to throw a punch, what did T-Mac say, right? Fear equals respect. Dan reminded me of that today. He goes, remember T-Mac soundbite? I think that was East Bay, right? He goes, somebody needs to be punched in the mouth. You know, fear equals respect. Well, he ain't wrong, right? So I'm not saying there needs to be a flat out brawl every single night, but there's got to be, when stuff like that happens, just let it go. Let's move on to next week. Let's promote it, right? And let's get more butts in the seats. This sport has to grow, and it can't be just like, oh, we have good racing. No, it has to be the whole gamut, and we've been missing that, in my opinion, for a long time. Any other closing thoughts on that, Bert?
No, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. You know, you can't have a bland sport, because a bland sport is, there's too many other options for entertainment. You have to, yes, it's racing, but it's also entertainment. Now, it's not the fake entertainment that the WWE is, right, but it's still entertainment.
Absolutely agree. And quite honestly, the fake entertainment of the WWE made a lot of money doing that. And but real and genuine and authentic, like that kind of excitement, like non-fabricated stuff, it's needed. Our sport needs that passion, and I'm fearing we're losing that more and more every single year. So speaking of passion, speaking of rivalries, is there a bigger rivalry in dirt racing than the World of Outlaw sprint car fan base and the Pennsylvania Posse?
Probably in racing, no, there's probably not a bigger rivalry than that. I mean,
maybe Johnny Broking versus TPO. We'll find out this year, right? Maybe that. It ain't close. Okay, Posse versus the Outlaws, incredible. In fact, so before we get into that, a shout out to one of our new sponsors here, right? Daytona One Performance Lubricants. So great company based out of Daytona, passionate about saving racers money and building the sport. Loves racing, and he realizes things cost too much. Things shouldn't wear out. You should be able to use things longer. So yeah, I actually got together with Chad here this week, and they had a lot of different products available, right? A lot of lubricants. They had some cam lube there that was with graphene, which is great. If you're an engine builder, you're going to probably want to check that out. But the founder of this company, Bert, is in the Nassau Hall of Fame. So for lubricants, the guy's sharp, right? I mean, all of their products, right, are environmentally friendly. And I told him, I said, most of us racers don't give a crap about that. But, I think some do, and more people probably should care about that, quite honestly. So they are environmentally friendly, which is good. So the one that I'm focused on the most, though, is their whole tire package, right? We know, Bert, that tires is the one expense that every racer has. That's their biggest weekly expense, is tires. The only thing that adheres a race car to the racetrack is rubber, right? And we've been saying it for years. Like, we need a tire that you can run competitively for more than one night, right? This idea of putting new rear tires on every single night, racing for $300 to win in one of the lower classes, is so stupid. It's not even, it's unbelievable. Like, if a driver's going to drive 100 miles to a racetrack with a pit guy, put on a couple tires and win the race and lose $150 to $200 after winning and not breaking anything, that's like the death to our sport. So if you could take a product, Bert, for about $10 per night using this product, okay? If you could take a product and actually run tires competitively for 2, 3, 4 nights and have them still be able to compete and win, that's a good deal. That's what they have here, right? So they have the cleaning product is called Aqua. That product right there, you can run that. There's not even a question if it's even legal. You can run that. That's a cleaning product. So what that does, it takes the release agent when the tires are made. It's like a waxy substance. It takes that out of the tire, which will help your tires not glaze over, right? It'll help them refire on long cautions. There's also a product. They have 3 different products, right? They have, based on, the amount of time that you're going to let the treatment work, but they have a tire treatment product that fills in the voids. When you pull that waxy substance out, it creates microscopic voids. You got to fill that back in with stuff that's already in the tire, makes those tires more consistent. So the testing I saw, and I actually got to see this done. I actually got to see the finished product. When they did a durometer test across the board, it was more consistent across the board after doing this. And there are people winning races, Bert, running their tires 3 or 4 nights, that are running their tires more, and they're still winning races. This product here, if it can save people money on their tire bill, that is good for everybody. And I really hope that WISSOTA takes a good look at this, and not only do they promote it, they need to talk about if they're going to make that legal or not. Quite honestly, Bert, a low budget person, they're getting to the point, they're not spending that kind of money the tires cost now every single week. They're going to run it anyway. It just is. But WISSOTA needs to take a good look at this deal. And the product is available, right, at TRE, but most importantly at Dirt Track Supply over in Watertown. So give them a call. I'm going to be posting, I got some videos here. We're going to be posting some stuff online, kind of some information about the product. But I'm excited about it because we need to help drivers save money. And that's one way to do it for sure. So, Bert, Lincoln Speedway this weekend basically eliminated a weekend sweep for Mother Nature. Like everything we picked, canceled, rain, all that, right? That's the only race that got in. Did you see the picture of the track before the race, what the posse did?
Yes.
What they do? Tell everybody what they did.
Well, I believe it was in the corner of the track.
Yeah.
They took like chalk, lime, whatever.
I'm guessing, yeah.
And wrote out the word posse in the corner. So you're coming to our house.
They were marking their territory. But the important question is, who won? Posse, Outlaws. Who won? Well, the California posse, not the PA posse, the CA posse. Rico Abreu, he got it done, drove by the big cat, Brad Sweet. Sweet, of course, a World of Outlaw regular, but when you look at it, Bert, 3 of the top 4 from Cali. Rico, Sweet, Devin Borden. I don't know this guy. He's from Washington State. He got 3rd. Yeah, that's a good run for him. Macedo got 4th. Justin Peck from Indiana 5th, and the highest finishing Pennsylvania posse driver Danny Dietrich in the 6th spot, but good racing down there. Any thoughts on the World of Outlaw sprint car action before we move on?
I know. I mean, it was a pretty good race. Like you said, almost everything was canceled because of weather this last weekend. So it was good to see them get that show in. Unfortunately, they were supposed to run 2 shows in that area. So unfortunately for the drivers, they drove a long ways for only 1 show.
I was surprised by that, right? Because I think it was a World of Outlaw late models maybe that one rained out and they just automatically canceled the other one. And then the World of Outlaw sprint cars, one rained out and they're like, no, we're still racing. So, it's a little bit different mindset there with the traveling. I don't know how their travel money works, but it was interesting. So this week's picks, Bert, our standings. Old Kurt here is at 29. Jeff's at 28. I'm at 25 and 3rd. Mike's at 23. Kent and Brad at 22. Dan at 20. Bert at 15. And not so hot Carl knocking on the door, trying to get out of the cellar, right? Trying to get out of the cellar. Big opportunity this week. 1 behind Bert. 10 races this weekend, Bert. There was going to be more. We were going to pick the XR Super Series events at Volunteer. That, of course, canceled, postponed to a later date. But the Thaw Brawl, Friday and Saturday at Davenport. We got a couple World of Outlaw sprint car races, the Talladega Short Track, and the Magnolia Motor Speedway. And in Humboldt here, we got a big weekend for modified racing. You got the King of America for the USMTS Modifieds. That's 3 nights. In the Battle at the Bull Ring for the USRA B mods. Those used to be 2 separate events, but they've combined that over the last couple of years. A lot of it was because of rain, but this year it's combined. It's 1 event, and that's going to be fantastic. So a lot of opportunity for some people to move in the points. But let's get to the last lap, Bert. Brought to you by our friends over at Zuli's Race Engines. And quite honestly, I've always had the mindset, if you can't beat them, you better join them, right? And that's where we're at today. Zuli's Race Engines, not only will you see them, I mean, you look at their Facebook page from years past, championships, right? Regional, you got the Steffes Championship, National Championships, Track Championships, feature wins, special event wins. So not only are they great engines that help you win races, but they're durable engines that help you win championships. So give them a call, Zuli's Race Engines, for a great product to get off to a great start here in 2023. So a couple things here, Bert. We had a little news there last week. Peyton Freeman, of course, jumping ship, getting out of the whole G.R. Smith deal. Rumor has it, I saw this online. The rumor has it G.R. Smith might have sold everything. He might have sold out. So rumor going around right now that he is done. We'll have to see because they have been hit. G.R. Smith and Ashton Winger suspended from XR Super Series events also. So not just the Southern All-Stars, but of course Barry Braun owns both series, so they're suspended from both. But Peyton Freeman then jumped it back into the Capital ride, so he's back in that. So that's interesting. Bert, couple different things. Asphalt World, but Eastern Wisconsin ties. What's going on over there with a couple of your guys?
Well, I saw Derek Kraus. I'm assuming it's just a 1 race ride. I don't know if it's for more than 1 race, but he got a ride for an Xfinity race. So I was a little bit surprised by that because he lost his truck ride after last year. So I was a little surprised to see him in going to be racing in an Xfinity race. So I wish him the best of luck. I hope he does well. I had the opportunity. I featured him in Full Throttle, before he made his move to the truck series. So, he's a super nice kid. Well, he's not a kid anymore. And his parents are really cool too. His dad used to race. So wish him the best of luck.
Absolutely. His dad used to race the super stock, by the way. I think it was number 9 over at Marshfield in the early years of Wissota. And then
and then he also raced the dirt late model and traveled the country for at least 1 year.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. I did not know that. So you also mentioned something about another driver over there.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot. Well, not, we've talked quite a bit about Ty Majeski on here, and yes, this is asphalt. But I just think this is kind of cool. The Rattler 250 is a race that takes place, I believe it's at a asphalt track in Alabama, and it's a pretty big. It pays $25,000 to win, so I mean, it's a big paying race, and Majeski has won that race 5 times already, and so he was going for number 6 this year. Obviously, he has a full-time ride in the NASCAR Truck Series, and they were racing in Atlanta. So he got to the Rattler 250 late for qualifying. So his penalty for being late was of his qualifying laps, they took the highest time that he had. Well, no problem. He still was sat on the pole. Even taking his worst lap, he was still sitting on the pole. And then they have a unique thing there where a company gives the pole sitter the opportunity for extra $10,000 to start in the back, and then if they come to the front and win, then they get an extra $10,000. So Majeski said, "Okay, sure, I'll start in the back," and he started in the back, and he actually made it to the lead. But Bubba Pollard passed him with 13 to go, so Majeski wound up finishing second. But that just shows you the type of racer that he is. I mean, he's got that super late model stuff down. He's just one of the best in the country. There's just no doubt about that. And he's doing pretty good in the Truck Series this year too. I think he finished 11th in Atlanta, and that was his first finish outside the top 10 this year. So it's good to see him have some success down there.
Well, I mean, maybe he opted to not win because of what the winner had to do in Victory Lane. I mean, I would do that.
Yeah.
Hell to freaking no. No, thank you. What? Talk about that.
Yeah, one of the things is if you win the Rattler 250, obviously it's called the Rattler for rattlesnake. It's called the Rattler 250. So if you win the race, you get to have a rattlesnake not around your neck, but they place it behind you, and there's somebody holding on to the head of the snake so it can't bite you, but still, yeah, it's
there is zero chance. If somebody put a snake on me, you remember that deal that happened at Southern Raceway, the shovel? I might do a reenactment. If you put a snake on me, I will hit you in the face with the shovel. I promise you. So maybe he said that. Screw that snake deal. I'll get second. I'm good.
Well, he's already did the snake thing 5 times. He should be a pro at it.
Yeah.
Did you see the pictures I sent?
5 too many.
Did you see the pictures I sent you?
I did. I still get the EBGBs watching Indiana Jones and that snake pit deal. That shit freaks me out. I hate snakes and just can't stand them.
So I haven't watched this, but I take it you haven't watched Snakes on the Plane?
No, and I probably will not. So we'll just leave that. So let's challenge series. I did not know this. I saw a post on Facebook. Wissota actually posting a lot more stuff on Facebook. A lot of schedules coming out. It's the 25th year this year, Bert, of the Structural Buildings Wissota Late Model Challenge Series. So kind of silver anniversary at 25. So kind of a cool deal. So congratulations to them. And, Rod Lindquist, of course, put a little bit more effort into that series last year than the people previously. And they got, I think Steppen's the race director for that. They got a new announcer this year. So things looking up in the challenge series. Hopefully that can continue to grow. Now, a little follow-up from last week. So remember we were talking about the tracks and kind of we mentioned Owatonna and I mentioned Steve Wettstein. Well, a friend of the show, he sent me some notes here. April 8th, 2004 is when that happened. It was a US MTS show at Owatonna, and it was a 30-lap feature, and they ended up checkering it. There was a yellow on lap 28, And that's when Wetstein went literally, like people were looking around, they're like, what is the yellow for? Well, evidently he went right through the fence, and I don't know where he ended up by a pole, absolutely destroyed the car. And so he actually sent me some info from that. Tommy Meyer parked in Victory Lane, Mike Hania in second, John Tesh in third. Here's a couple names for you. Willie Kraft fourth, Mark Noble fifth, and Kelly Shryock sixth. So kind of a who's who of modified racing there in 2004 at Owatonna. So another thing here, speaking of down in the southern area, they have an old timers racers reunion Saturday, 11 to 5 at Steve Yeage's shop. Of course, we know who Steve Yeage is. Steve Yeage, another guy that was sponsored by Jordan, maybe was sponsored by Arnie Ranta. But they do a racers reunion for a lot of old timers, and they've been doing this for a number of years. I'm not sure what year it is, but it's open to the public, a free will offering. So if you like old school racing stories and some of the old drivers from the past, that's something that maybe if you can make it work, try to get over to that deal. I would love to make it to that deal at one point, but I don't think it's going to work into the schedule this week. Another thing, so I was over at Dino Don Swearingen's house. He kind of helped me out get this deal set up with Rick Eggersdorf. And we talked last year, Bert, about drivers and teams going out in the public and helping promote, right? We put it all in the promoters. You got to promote more. Well, racers, it's your sport, right? It's your sport too. Bert, they have a car. He bought an old modified. They got an old modified that it's turnkey. It runs, right? Got a fresh body on it and everything. That literally, I think they got like $2,500 or something like that. Not much money into the deal, but they actually take that car, and the only thing they use it for is a show car for like parades and different things like that. So a tip of the cap to my buddy Dino for really just kind of stepping up and saying, hey, I want to do something to help promote our sport. I think that's super cool. And we talked about last week, Bert, throwback apparel. Remember, we talked about that a little bit. Another friend of the show here, Big Al Schmidt over in Watertown. And I'll post it if you're watching it, you see it right now. But if you're listening on a podcast, maybe jump on here and go to the last couple of minutes of the show. But he had some old apparel from the Casino Speedway, some pretty cool throwback stuff. So if you got some throwback stuff, send us some pictures, because that stuff's kind of cool. But let's jump into
speaking of the throwback stuff, since last week's show, it is official. Shawano Speedway is going to have a retro night. I believe the date is August 12th. So fans are encouraged to bring their old t-shirts and stuff. If you still fit into them, you can wear them. That's the problem.
That would be a problem, yes.
And there's talk about possibly doing having drivers do a contest for retro graphic schemes. So we'll see how that progresses.
That's awesome. I'm excited for that. And a little shameless plug here. So starting in April, a couple years ago, we did the power ranking shows, Bert, and we showcased the drivers. That's coming back. We're doing that. I'm doing that again. We're going to do multiple classes. Stay tuned for some details on that. But I talked to Rick Eggersdorf about that as well. And he's like, there's really not much out there anymore that really gives the drivers any love, right? I mean, you got all the dirt, but it's kind of an online deal now. It's not quite the same. And, if you're not a Wissota track, you don't even get mentioned. So like Cedar Lake drivers, Jim Falls drivers, they get no love whatsoever. We used to have, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I mean, there are tracks out there that don't even do a results story. They just rely strictly on My Race Pass for results. But I mean, there's no write-up as to, how the action went down. And I think that's a case where as we advance in technology, we move backwards in recognition and marking that stamp in history.
Right. Right. You're spot on. Right. And that's something that kept me going. Right. Obviously, we don't race for money. I mean, if you wanted to race for money, you'd go get another job because you ain't making no money racing. There's a handful of people maybe. Right. But the fact is you got to give drivers recognition, validation for their accomplishments on the racetrack. And I see a need there. I'm excited about it. And I had a lot of fun doing that a couple of years ago where I was able to take some time every single week and showcase the drivers for their wins and the championships and all that and have a little fun with the power rankings besides. So I'm excited to do that, Bert. I think it's something that's definitely needed. But let's get into our 3 bold predictions for the week. And the rules here, of course, we make a prediction mostly based on racing. Sometimes we throw a little sports deal in there as well, but it has to be something to where we can absolutely say it did happen or it did not happen. And this is a chance where we can come on here and say, boy, we blew that one. We were dead wrong, right? So let's start with off the board. Not much happened last weekend, so you didn't have any off the board, but I got one here. Okay. So one of my predictions last week was the Pennsylvania Posse and the World of Outlaws will split between Williams Grove and Lincoln. They're going to split. Well, did I get that right, wrong, indifferent? What?
Well, Abreu's not a regular, is he?
No.
So I would say you got it wrong.
Is 0-0 a split?
Well,
in the spirit of the rule, I basically, we know that I was saying the Outlaws would win one and the Posse would win one. So yes, that was wrong. I get a notch against me on that one because if they would have ran both, Rico would have messed that up and I would not have. That was wrong. So that's an incorrect for me. So standings as of now, Bert, I have 11 correct and a whopping 24 incorrect. Not good. 31.4% correct. Bert, you're doing a little better than me. You got 16 correct, 17 incorrect. You got 48.5. One more correct there. You're batting 500. I got some work to do to catch up to you. So we got 3 predictions. I'll let you start. What is your first one?
All right. I don't think I've picked this series yet. So I am saying Chris Madden will win the World of Outlaw late model tour this year.
Okay. Chris Smokey Madden, World of Outlaw late model season championship. I'm going to go with the Nightmare. Lucas Rodin is going to win at least one feature at the Humboldt event this weekend. And if it rains out, Bert, and they postpone it, it would be for that weekend. So Lucas Rodin will win at least one at Humboldt. Of course, last year he won. He took home the $10,000 payday last year. So good luck, Nightmare, down there in Humboldt. What do you got for your next one?
All right. Last I heard he was going there. So I'm going to say Jake Tim will win at least one of the USMTS features down this weekend.
I'd like to see a Minnesota guy park in Victory Lane down there. So good luck, Jake Tim. So I'm going to stick with the USMTS theme here. And there's 3 features. They race Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay. So the winners of the USMTS modified A mains at the event down in Humboldt, okay, they will represent different chassis builders each night. So what I'm predicting is nobody's in a double up, right? And each of the 3 nights, a different chassis brand will park it in Victory Lane.
Okay. For my last one, I will go Superman will finish in the top 20 in the NASCAR race at Bristol on dirt.
Okay. Top 20. So 20th or better. He's going to get 21st. That's going to be a bad 20. So I am going to go with a little structural buildings with sort of late model challenge series love here. So in 2022, Bert, what they did is however many shows they had, I think last year they ended up racing 11 events. Well, they allowed you to drop one event for your point total. Okay. So meaning that there was 10 required events to be in the hunt for the championship. Last year, 5 drivers, I believe it was 5 drivers. Yeah, 5 drivers ran 10 shows. So meaning that, and then there was 2 more drivers, or 5 drivers ran 11 shows, and there was 2 drivers that ran 10, meaning that the show they dropped was their no show. Okay, that fair enough. So what I'm saying this year is at least 10 drivers will have the max amount of shows. So if they race 12 shows, right? For example, they throw one away, at least 10 drivers will have raced in 11. Okay. So that way they'll have a full gamut of shows towards their championship. So I'm doubling up on that. I'm saying it's going to be 10 or more will race the full required amount of shows for the points. So we'll see if Rod we'll see if he gets the job done. I know he's pretty confident about that challenge series. We'll see what Rod has to say at the end of the year if they're able to pull that off. So Bert, episode 169 in the book, a lot of racing. Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates here this weekend. But any closing thoughts before we sign off here?
This Saturday is going to be Shawano Speedway Fan Fest at Fire and Iron Gathering in Clintonville, Wisconsin. It's the old Shopco building in Clintonville. I was talking to Brad Lipke, and he said he's expecting roughly 30 cars to be on display, plus around 10 go-karts and 5 UTV vehicles that race. There'll be vendors on site. There's going to be an ice cream truck, a barbecue truck for fans to buy food and dessert. There'll be some raffle prizes available. I'll have a booth set up there. I'll have copies of the Full Throttle issues from last year. I'll have some of my vintage diecast cars on display. And I'm also, Shawano Speedway is going to have a special race for each division this year. The late model one isn't confirmed yet, so I won't be collecting for that one, but I am going to I'm doing this on my own. I have approval from the track, but I'm doing it on my own, collecting lap money for lap leaders for each of those special events. So if fans want to sponsor a lap, I'll be at the show collecting money and doing that sort of thing. So it's a lot of snow on the ground, but get some racing in the air.
There you go. So Shawano Speedway, lucky to have Bert Lehman and lucky to have Brad back. I tell you what, he does a great job over there. So excited to see Brad back. I don't know anything about the other guy, but Brad, from the years, he's done a lot of great things over there in Shawano. So excited about that. So again, thanks to all of our great sponsors. Appreciate it. Fans, drivers, everybody, support those sponsors of ours when you can. Let them know that you heard about them on the One to Go show. That would help us out a bunch. If you have a business out there and you want to promote yourself either on the One to Go show or on the weekly recap shows for Wissota Racing, that would, just reach out to us. We got some spots available there as well. But 169 in the books, 170 coming up next week, Bert. Always fun talking racing. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go show.